Welcome everyone to the On Speed Dial podcast with After the Tone. My name's Jacob. I have Bailey with me as well, and today's guest, Claire from Grit and Grace Events.
Hello.
Grit and Grace Events Co.
Grit and Grace Events.
Okay.
But on the internet, it's a Grit and Grace Events Co.
I've always called you
the
Grit and
same.
Grace Events.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Then, but I saw the co and I was like,
Sometimes
oh
you
my
have
gosh.
to add the co.
That's
Yeah.
how I
When-
identify.
Yes.
When your
Yeah.
username isn't
Yeah,
available.
of course. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So stoked to have you here. For those of you guys who don't know, we've been friends with Claire for a couple years now. Very, very cool person. Very excited for you guys to learn about her and her story and talk some wedding planning stuff. So, yeah, Claire, to get started,
Yeah.
for for our listeners who don't know you,
Mhm.
who is Claire? You know,
Yeah.
your story, what made you interested in wedding planning, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
I was going to say, I feel like there's so many facets, but
Yeah.
what people probably know me as is a wedding planner. So I'm based in Southern California, and I've been planning weddings for, I've been in the industry for like 7 years, which is crazy, like from first wedding till now.
Right.
And that's primarily what I do. My career has evolved kind of in the last couple of years, but that's kind of the sitch. I mean, I'm always drinking coffee, which feels so basic.
Yeah.
Like I always say that, but it's true. And yeah, I would say that's a little bit about me.
Totally.
Love it.
What I'm always curious, what made you want to start in wedding planning from jump?
Yeah. So I was in college at the time when I started, and I was studying to be a teacher, like an elementary school teacher. I had always thought I was going to be that because it was creative and organized, and like have always loved kids and just like, you know, so excited to be a mom, but like not ready to be a mom. So like teaching just was my perfect career. And so I was in school to do that. And I was also working anthropology part-time just for fun. I've always functioned best when I have multiple things going on. Like when I have one thing that I have to focus on, it's like so much harder for me to be so focused on it. So I like to have multiple things going on. So I was studying teaching and then working anthropology for fun, and the discount. It's like
Yeah.
the best thing
Amazing.
ever.
Makes it affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my manager anthropology was a wedding planner. So she had her own side thing. And I was like, that just sounds so fun. I would love to do that. So I just asked her a ton, like, can I please? And so eventually I assisted her at a wedding and loved it. And I realized, I've realized over the years, but I realized there was so much overlap with teaching. Like you have to be quite organized. You have to be people oriented. You have to be creative. And so that's how I started. And I went to a small Christian school where people got married very young.
Our rival.
Yeah. Rival is such like an
I
aggressive
know.
word. And so I had friends that were getting married and did not have the budget that you would have when you get married a little later in life.
Yeah.
And they were like, can you help us plan our wedding? And I was like, okay, cool. I can do this. And then it just kept going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny how it just keeps going.
It
huh?
just keeps
Yeah.
going.
I have a question. How was that like planning really like your first wedding for friends? Like was there stress added to that? Especially because it's like, you know them, you have such a close relationship and you're like, okay, this is like one of the most important days of their lives.
Yeah.
Also.
I actually enjoyed it a lot more at the beginning than I did random people's weddings.
Okay.
Because my like true first wedding that I did was that manager that I had at anthropology. Her friend was getting married. And so she was like, I'm in the wedding. I can't do it. Can you just coordinate? And that wedding I found so stressful because I really didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know these people, which is a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I felt like because I didn't know what I was doing, I had no reputation with them to be like, I promise, like I'm a good person. Like I'm trying my best.
Right.
With my friends, I loved it more because I was able to communicate like, oh, I'm not really sure what to do for that, but let me go figure it out.
Yeah.
Whereas at the beginning, when it was a client that I didn't know, I like couldn't offer that information, if that makes sense. So, and because I knew and loved these people that were getting married, it was like so much more motivating to be like, I'm gonna do so good at
Do a
this
good
because I care about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember when I used to do wedding videography,
Yeah.
and my first wedding, I was a wreck.
Yeah.
I stayed at my buddy's house in San Diego. The wedding was in San Diego. I couldn't sleep the night
Yeah.
before. I triple checked all the cameras. It was just like I couldn't handle it. So
I totally remember that.
and Connor.
And we were chatting earlier today, and I was saying that that's how I first met you. It was like our second wedding ever after the Tone, Chanel and Max's wedding, and you were doing video.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
Little throwback.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember Chanel describing it to me,
Yeah.
and I was like,
And you were
I'm sorry,
so nice.
What is this?
I was so nervous, and I remember I kept going up to Claire, and I was like, "Can I like set stuff up here, and like can we like remind the DJ to like tell people about the phone?" And you're just so nice during that day. So it was
Very
great.
supportive.
It was so fun. I loved it.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay. So your planning company,
Mm-hmm.
Grit and Grace Events Co.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the co.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever asked you how you got the name or if there's a meaning.
Yeah. So I had a different name at the beginning. It was Claire Marie Coordination because it's my first and middle name. And when I started, I had a mentor at the time who like completely changed the trajectory of my career, and her business was her name. So I was like, okay, so I'll name it after myself.
Yeah. Sure.
Like it's your most valuable. It's like such a hot commodity. Well, not a hot commodity. It's so valuable to name something after yourself, whatever. And Claire Marie Coordination just flowed really nicely. But then as I was further along in my career, I realized there really is a difference between coordinating and planning. And I much preferred planning to coordinating. So when I was rebranding, I realized I need to change the name to be more reflective of what I'm looking to do with this company. And so it took me like a year and a half to think of a name because it felt like such a huge daunting task.
Right.
And I really picked it because I liked the way it flowed. And I also felt like Grit and Grace were so like such crucial characteristics or whatever you would call them to like building the business and like being a wedding planner. And so it just made sense. And it was like one of those things that once I heard it, I was like, oh, that's it.
It's it. Yeah.
So there's like definitely meaning, but also it just worked.
And your brain just goes, that's the one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
how-
tried
I
so
feel like
many.
that's how it goes.
That's how we
How it
were
goes.
with After the
It
Tone. When
clicks.
she told me the name, I was like, we're not changing it.
You're like, we're done.
That's great. Yeah. I'm so glad this conversation's over.
Yeah.
We figured it out. You said something interesting there. What if you had to describe the difference between coordinating and planning? Because I feel like everyone, including myself, unfortunately, throws those words almost like interchangeably together, like wedding coordinator, wedding planner, whoever. Like, how would you? I know you just made an emphasis on there being a big difference. How would you describe that?
Yeah. I think it's really common that people throw them around.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure only planners
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
the people who are like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Coordinating to me is like bringing together all of the pieces of what somebody else has done. So I'm coordinating like what you have already pieced together. So if you think of like month of coordination or day of coordination, the person running the day has not actually planned it. Like when I used to do that, I didn't pick the photographer or the florist or the videographer. I like meet with the client 60 days out and I figure out everything that they've planned and I coordinate it to make sure that it goes like really seamlessly.
Yeah.
A planner is the one planning everything.
Yeah.
So coordination to me means less involvement on my end and planning to me means way more involvement on my end.
Right.
Got it. So, like, if Jacob and I were in our beginning stages of planning again, we would come to you and be like, we like really want a photographer that like matches like these vibes, but we like don't know who to work with, or here's our like dream list of like wedding venues and locations, and you would like take that information and then make the magic
Yes.
happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would be better? Someone who has a wedding planner, no coordinator, or someone who has a wedding coordinator, no wedding planner?
I feel like typically if I'm thinking about it in my brain,
Yeah.
a planner usually is there on the day of. So
Yeah.
they're the one coordinating it. But I think it's so much more valuable to have a planner
Yeah.
because just like with any field, when you have a planner who's been in the industry, like I always say I speak the language. And it's not that a bride can't learn it because brides plan weddings without planners all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
But having a planner in it with you, like they can speak to like, this is a really normal price for that, or this is really abnormal, because prices, are so astronomical in the wedding industry. It's very
Yeah.
easy to feel like, oh, I'm getting taken advantage of, or not be aware that you're getting a really good deal, whatever the case is. So I think a planner is so much more valuable because they're able to really guide you through every step of the way. And in theory, I always say wedding day is the easiest part of my job because I should be able to show up and then all of my hard work is like just happening.
Yeah.
Whoa. Interesting.
So I would prefer a planner.
Got you. Okay. That's so interesting because videography obviously is the complete opposite.
Yeah,
Where it
yeah.
was like, it's game day on wedding day. And it's like, that's where, you know, all the pre stuff's
Yeah.
pretty easy, but that's really interesting. So you have gone into the influencer world.
I have.
You are an influencer.
A
Can I say
little
that?
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel like an
Yeah.
influencer.
Do you claim the title or no?
Is that a title anymore, or is it more like
I don't know.
Content
creator?
Oh, content
Like,
creator?
Yeah.
What is
Sorry.
it? Yeah.
Is
No, I think
influencer
there's
bad?
no.
Okay.
No, I just feel like there's a bunch of different
Got you.
terms. Yeah.
So you've built an incredible social platform. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Should be very proud of that. How has that been? Just that growth, that journey. Very, very interested, especially because it's you. Like it's your face in the car videos. You know, that's kind of,
Always.
I love it. And you know, I'm curious, walk me through that. Like, how does that change things? Like, I've heard stories of you getting recognized out in public, which I'm
Yeah.
sure is very random.
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
Yeah. It's been like the most interesting process. I feel so grateful for it because it's insane.
Yeah.
Like it really feels like the algorithm just picks people.
Yeah.
And like you can do the right thing 150 times and it still doesn't land. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
they have all these rules as to like post 5 times a day, which is literally insane.
Yeah.
So
And
much.
you'll blow up or whatever. And I'm sure there's like merit to what these people are saying, but it really feels like it just like picked somebody. Like so many of the really, really big influencers have been working at their social platform for years. And then one day, one of their videos gets traction and then they end up in the millions. And it's
Yeah.
just like
Right.
crazy. But I, at the very beginning, felt so overwhelmed by it because it is just me. Like I definitely, you know, I've always had a couple people that work with me and like support me, but the way I feel that I've been able to build my business has been just me. And I'm business mentors everywhere are like, don't do that. But I was never the planner that was super interested in like having 200 weddings a year.
Like scaling. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved the influencer side of it because it allowed me to grow my business in a different way, like diversify my income like everybody talks about without like having a million employees, which is just not what I was looking to do.
Yeah.
But initially I was like so in shock that it was happening, but also very overwhelmed because it's like such a large audience. But I've really learned to love it, and I do love it, and it's been fun to like experiment with like new video types, which I don't do that many new video types. I just stick with what works. But yeah, it's like gotten me such incredible opportunities, like so many things that I would never have access to before, and allowed me to like live a life and like have freedom in my life that I otherwise wouldn't have had.
Sure.
So yeah, I always feel like I never know how to answer that question because I think when people are lifestyle influencers, it's a completely different experience, which I feel pretty confident I never want to be a lifestyle influencer because you have to give so much of your life online. But I do love the like type of influencer that I am because people do not expect me to tell them every little personal detail about my life. Most people don't even know a lot about my life.
Yeah.
But they come to me for like my expertise, which is pretty cool. And I love that. It
Yeah.
allows me to have like boundaries,
Yeah.
Totally.
you know, without having like tried. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's cool.
That's awesome. So what if you had to scheme out what, you know, the future is going to be
Yeah.
for Claire, for
Yeah.
Grace? all those things. How do you see, you know, the planning,
Yeah.
the influencer? Is there one you want more than the other? Like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have realized this year that planning is my bread and butter. Like it is what I wake up excited to do, and I love designing weddings. I love being there on wedding days. Like there's just something so rewarding about it.
Yeah.
So I see myself planning weddings very long term. I think the amount that I take will evolve pretty significantly, contingent on my life stage. And what I love about influencing is when I get to just post organic content. I think when it loses its spark is when there's a lot of brand deals involved, which obviously is a privilege to have brand deals, and like there's so many benefits to it. But you see this other side of influencing that is just like marketing and like numbers. And it's like the marketing is super fun. So what I'm saying is I really enjoy influencing. I plan to like keep doing it, but continue to like work with brands that I'm really excited about, which every influencer says. But I honestly think if I'm going to continue doing it, it has to be with things that I care about.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if I don't send another brand deal in my career, I'd be fine.
Cool.
I love sharing wedding tips. I love being able to help brides. I love being able to like, that's why I started doing it.
Right.
So
From jump.
yeah. So basically more of the same.
Okay.
But if I had to pick, I would choose wedding planning.
Got you. Yeah. It's interesting. You were one, there's a couple people in the industry, especially like when I was doing videography and I was a lot closer to everybody's day to day and stuff. I remember when I was a wedding videographer and the creatives, you know, your photographers, the videographers, all those guys and girls, there's an opportunity for those people to, you can get lazy because, you know, you film on the weekends and you're burnt out and you want to like take a couple days off, or like you wake up at 10 a.m. to start editing or whatever. And I remember it was hard for me to get into a groove sometimes, like for my clients. Sometimes you're not inspired, you don't want to edit, all that kind of stuff. And I remember you would post just you talking about like how much you love planning, and like I could tell that you loved doing it. You would post, I forgot how you worded it. It's weird. I like remember this from like years ago. You were saying something like your clients deserve the best by like you doing your job. You know what I mean? Like your clients deserve you like being organized, taking care of your shit, and you know what I mean, getting all your stuff done. And I remember you saying that, and that stuck with me too, because I think of that, you know, even today, like with what we do. And I think that's a mark of somebody who actually cares about what they're doing, to the point where, you know, you care about your clients. Because if you don't care about what you're doing, who cares what the end user is going to receive from you? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But that's just, you know, I wanted to shout that out because that's something cool that I saw years ago, and it's, you know, very evident that that planning love is still there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a manufactured one.
Yeah.
Because we've all been in the room with some planners who I love my brides and whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't believe them.
But there's authenticity there,
Correct.
because we can sit here and like confidently say in all the conversations that we've had off camera together through the years, like that has been said countless times too. Like what you say on and off, like it's very authentic and real. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, just to like piggyback off that really quick, I feel like obviously I stand by that statement, but it has like changed drastically. I've only been engaged 1 month.
Yeah.
It has changed drastically being in this position, like as a bride and as a wedding vendor. Like it.
How so?
I think as a wedding vendor, it can be very easy to see somebody's wedding as just another work day.
Yep.
It's very easy to be like, well, if I mess up on this, I mean, this is horrible. But the idea is like, if I mess up on this one, like that's fine. I have one next weekend.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really easy to lose sight of the fact that it's somebody's wedding day.
Yeah.
The detail that you forget, they're going to remember forever. And like, obviously you don't always want to use fear as a reason to like do better at your job, but it's so it just completely changes the way that I see the industry and like see what I do. And I think there's a lot of conversation in the industry about how much money you can make, and like everybody wants to make another dollar, and I totally get that. I do. But I find that it's really hard to maintain a really high level of service for each client
Yeah.
when you really do just want another dollar, because
Right.
you can sign 35 weddings,
Right.
but what happens on the wedding day? So I think being like a bride in this position, I'm like, it affects like who I want to work with for my wedding, and like who I like, how I approach my clients, and how I approach conversations with potential clients now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, number one, I'm never offended if they don't want to work with me, because
Right.
I'm like, I get it. Like, there's been tons of people that I love, but I'm not going to work with them for my wedding for whatever reason. And it's not personal. But secondarily, it's like the conversation as a wedding vendor when you're talking to new clients should always be about the client fully.
Right.
It's not about building your portfolio, and it's not about making another dollar. And so just like, it's been like kind of motivating to like
Yeah.
be in this position now, being like, you know, this many years into my career, and be like, okay, wait, let's like make sure we're totally good in how we approach this. And yeah, so
Yeah.
it's been
I-
interesting.
I feel like that's something, especially for like the wedding vendor side of it. Obviously, not really much on our side with the whole we ship everywhere. But like when I was a videographer again, or just any other wedding vendor, it's that same thing where, yeah, you can book 40 weddings, but how much of Jacob is going to be there
Literally
when you
not.
have a quadruple header
Yes.
and it's Sunday morning at 11 a.m.? You know what I mean? How
Yeah.
on are you? And that was a big decision for us when after the tone started, and I was still doing weddings at the same time, wedding videos on the weekends. And it hit this breaking point where I ended up having to cancel like, you know, 6 to 8 weddings that were months away, but like 6 months plus away the following year, because I told the brides, like,
It's not fair.
you don't want me at your wedding.
Mm-hmm.
I know you think you want me at your wedding, but like the me that I can give you right now is not the me that you're paying for.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a disservice to you for me to be there, which, you know, I got a varied reaction from
A
that.
very hard conversation to have, but like
Right.
one that at the end of the day you are thinking about like that end product for your clients, like
Right.
being present the day of, and also being able to like work through weaving together like a beautiful, like you're telling a story as a videographer, and you want to be as present as possible there. So I think at the end of the day, like you are making
Yeah, it's
the right move for both parties.
keeping the client in focus, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and it's also always weird with that, because sometimes in the wedding industry, it like feels like a breakup if a vendor's not going to work with you, or vice versa. You don't land that bride, or you know, whoever, and it's like,
Yeah.
what is it about me? Like, what, you don't like me, or you know? So,
I wanted to just kind of like piggyback onto what you were saying, because I feel like in a different way, but in a similar way, it resonates with what we do at After the Tone. Like, yeah, we're not usually physically present for those weddings, but I think since the beginning, the messaging to like from day one when it was just you and I to like 3 employees to now like a team, we always say like, hey, like every single person, like from like
Yeah.
beginning to client outreach to packing the phone to editing a client's voicemails, like you play a very major part in like your client's experience and the delivery of their day.
their wedding
And it
day.
is their wedding day. Like it
Right.
is one of the most important days of their lives. And yeah, you do like, we really try to remember that with every client, because that's why we all do what we do, right? Like to give them that experience.
Yeah.
And to relate back to like you now being in that position of being a bride to be and planning and talking to vendors and creating like your own curated team for your day. Like when we listened to our voicemails for the first time, it was like that click of like, okay, like that's what I want every time for people. Like
Yeah.
whatever we felt and experienced the first time doing that, that's what we want for everybody else. So
Yeah.
I just feel like we can resonate on,
Yeah.
in that way for sure.
Yeah. I tell everyone on our team that, like, don't you dare forget, this is somebody's wedding. Like, this is the most important day to them,
Yeah.
you know, most likely in their life. And no matter how many we're doing or how many we are lucky and privileged to be a part of, it's somebody's wedding, and you know they deserve to be treated XYZ. So, well, this was a perfect segue because my next question was going to be you getting engaged
Yeah.
while being a wedding planner. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, congratulations on being engaged. Yeah, the only I was curious. We talked about it a little bit, so we don't have to talk about a ton more. But how has being a planner kind of affected that? Like, are you picky with stuff? I'm sure, probably specific with certain vendors, or how, you know, or do you not care too much, or how's that been?
So we got engaged a month ago, and I have no desire to plan our wedding right now. And I think there's multiple reasons for that. I think the first is that I'm a planner.
Yeah.
So like I actually know what it entails. But the other thing is it's so easy to make decisions for other people. And making a decision for myself and for Michael it carries completely different weight. And I stand by all the decisions I've made for my clients, but you know, like that's part of the reason you have a planner is to help facilitate those decisions when you are kind of not sure. But I also, it makes me, I think I'll start planning probably like early 2024 because we'll probably get married in 2025. So I am excited to start, and I know what I'm excited to do. Like I know what fuels me and like the design side of things. And I'm so excited to start reaching out to my friends who are vendors who are really good at their jobs to be like, can you work my wedding? I'm so excited for that. And I'm just excited to see it come to life and be able to be creative. And I actually think being in the position of being a bride now, I think it's going to make me a better wedding planner.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's certain things that I plan to do for my wedding that I maybe have never done for another wedding. Yeah. And if I like it, maybe I'll start offering it, or maybe, you know what I'm saying? So, it's like, I'm so excited. I'm so like, I can't wait. I always say I can't wait to be married and to have my wedding.
Yeah.
The planning I'm excited for, and I know what it entails, but I don't feel as like naive to what what happens. So, and it's also my money. It's like a completely different ball game.
For sure. For sure.
Paying those deposits.
About that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's nice too. Like you just got engaged a month ago, right? So you get to like be present like in this season, and not like fully rush in and be like, okay, like planning. Like you get to enjoy the moments together, like being an engaged couple, because that's only one part of it all, right?
Yeah.
So.
Right.
And you know, we had a 3-year engagement, so like
it's a long time.
I'm sure.
It's probably on the longer side.
Are you sick of people asking you when you're getting married yet?
No.
Okay.
No, because I haven't decided when I'm getting married yet. I think probably spring 2025.
Got you. Okay.
Love it.
I like that.
Yeah. I'll let you know if that changes. But as of right now, spring 2020. I don't think it'll go past that.
Yeah. I see.
No.
Do you notice, like, I guess, I don't know if a trend is like the right word, but like your clients in the last couple of years, like having longer or shorter engagements, or like what kind of like the norm is lately?
I would say under a year is pretty abnormal for my clients.
Okay.
I think there's so many things that affect how long your engagement is.
Yeah.
Like my cousin is getting married, and she's getting married in 6 months, but I'm planning her wedding.
Bless
and
her.
I'm loving it. And
Amazing.
She's literally the chillest bride I've ever had in my life.
That's so sweet.
I'm like, hey, these are two photographers I think would be a great fit. And she chooses one. And it's just like in 3 weeks, we had basically the whole wedding planned.
Wow.
I'm like, that
Incredible.
is the only way to make that happen. And like, she's enjoying her engagement as far as I'm aware, and all that stuff. So usually a year to a year and a half is typical. 2 years definitely happens, but it starts to feel quite long.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys were engaged for longer than that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it just starts to feel like, okay, like I'm ready to go. So
Yeah. For sure.
It was long.
Yes, it was a long time, but
We're also little children.
We were young.
during our
We were
engagement.
young. We
Yeah.
got engaged at 23.
Also, private Christian college.
Yeah.
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 Rivals.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that. Switching gears,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get your take on something I'm sure you've heard about, maybe not.
Okay.
Have you seen the $56 million wedding that went down in
Yes,
Paris?
but now it's gone off the internet.
Correct.
Vanished.
Yeah.
Okay. So just for, because I don't, have I gone through all the details with you?
You haven't told me all the details,
Okay.
but
It
Sounds like you
was
wanna
a
chat about it.
$56 million wedding that took, I think, like 3 to 5 days or something like that. They rented out one of the oldest opera houses in France. They stayed at the Palace of Versailles for, I think, rehearsal dinner or the night before the wedding. And
Wow.
they had Maroon 5 at their wedding.
wow.
If that wasn't a sign, sorry if you're a Maroon 5 fan. But then it came out that the groom got charged with aggravated assault against a public servant. I think he shot a cop. He fired at cops in Texas back in March. So yeah, he appeared in court, and then he's probably going to get life in prison. So I think they like scrubbed it from the internet.
They did.
Yeah,
It's
because
gone.
the bride, her dad owns a bunch of Mercedes dealerships or something like that. That's where all the money came from.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
Who
it was
knew?
$56 million wedding type of money.
Yeah, I missed. I'm in the wrong career.
My question to you is, how would you plan a $56 million wedding?
Okay, I love flowers so much.
Yeah.
57 million would go right to the flowers. No, I love that they did it somewhere really cool.
Yeah.
I think when you have that much money, you kind of have to go very extravagant,
Like massive.
right?
Go
Like
all
you
out.
can do whatever you want. If I had $56 million, I would probably actually do something more private.
Mhm.
But I understand if you're going to spend much money, like in theory, well, not in theory, in actuality, the way people saw that was social media. And it didn't actually matter if they were at a really public place. It mattered that it got posted on social media. That's
Right.
how we all learned about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would still do a really cool, probably a castle, you know?
Yeah.
Fly all your guests in. I heard that they like private chartered
Yes.
all of their
Yeah.
guests. And I
Everyone.
mean, that's a couple million.
Yeah.
So,
Make it a full
Just
experience.
PJ everybody.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do that for sure. I would hire literally top planner. I would be like, I'm not doing any of this.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you what I like and whatever. Definitely a lot of flowers, a lot of cool rentals. I also feel like I would just make it like a vacation.
Yes.
Right.
Like, let's just go for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
you know, I don't even know what I would do with that kind of money.
Isn't that
Like,
crazy?
I can't even wrap my head around that amount, but like I'm imagining that if they have that type of money, like a budget for a wedding, all of their parties are probably like they go all out, so they
Right.
just had to hit like
the next level.
like 10 levels
Right.
Yeah.
out of the park.
I
for
mean,
sure.
Can you imagine like sending a quote to them
No.
and like sweating that if they're going to sign it or not? It might be out of their budget.
oh my, Lord. Oh my gosh, I would no. What would like really be wild to see the invoices. Like if I was their
Right.
planner
Yeah.
to be like, okay, your invoice for 13 million is due on Friday.
Yeah.
Do you want to ACH that?
That's
or
what I'm
Venmo?
saying.
Like,
How are you even paying that? Are you swiping a credit card for 56
I mean,
million?
get those points.
Yeah.
Get those points.
Right?
They don't need them. They don't need them.
Are you wiring people for
Yeah,
your
literally.
wedding? That's insane. Okay.
$56 million cash though?
Was it cash?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. That feels
No,
like
I don't think so.
Okay.
that would be hard.
I don't know if Maroon 5 takes cash.
You're right. You're right.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to get a professional wedding planner's take
Yeah,
on a
it's-
$56 million wedding.
I just like my brain does not go like
I can't understand
I
it.
just I don't know. There's another planner who out there who definitely would have a better answer for you. But
I don't even know how you would plan like a $5 million wedding. Like that's
No.
already so much money,
yeah, it's so
you know?
much.
I mean, 500,000 is a ton of money, you know? Maybe not these days for
Yeah,
some of
unfortunately,
the wedding prices.
500,000 feels like
Do you think that'll ever end?
I really hope it does.
Okay,
I
because
truly do.
it's astronomical,
Yeah.
the prices and how
Right.
everybody, you know, and I get it, inflation and people got to make money and all that stuff, but I think it's a conversation in the industry right now that like everybody, no matter what your industry or what your sector in the wedding industry is, like is so much more expensive than they were 3 years ago.
Correct.
Do you think it's going to keep going?
So this is my theory what's going to happen. I think there's been a lot of conversation in the industry about how 2024 is going to be just a completely different landscape for the wedding industry because the average turnaround time for a couple to get married is 3 years. 3 years ago for us right now was 2020. And so 2024 is like an abnormally like slow year. A lot of vendors are talking about it. And there's just been conversation about how, you know, this is not an original thought. I heard this somewhere on a podcast, but essentially 2020 was so insane.
Yep.
Right.
And then 2021 was so insane. And so all these vendors were like, I'm charging whatever I want because you will hire me. 2022 was also pretty crazy, but not to that same level.
Yeah.
And now we're normalizing.
Yeah.
And vendors have these extremely high prices, but there's not as high of a demand.
Right.
So I think it's really difficult to like swallow your pride a little bit, but I think we're going to see vendors that are having to lower their prices to like be in business.
Stay booked.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, there's always that conversation of like raise your prices, have fewer clients, whatever the case is. But I do think we're going to see a lot of vendors have to bring their prices down or be willing to negotiate. And it's going to have to be an industry thing. We all have to do it because otherwise it doesn't serve anybody. But I think I mean, as a planner, I love when there's like, we have the funds to like do really incredible design for a wedding and it can be just like incredible and original and all of those things. But I think it has to kind of stop.
Yeah.
Like the way things cost these days when I get quotes back,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not totally sure what I'm paying $25,000 for right now.
Right.
$25,000?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry for like, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I got a quote back once for a photographer, which no shade to this person because their work is incredible.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was $20,000 for photography
Never heard that before.
for like 10 hours. You know,
Wow.
of course, I would hope it's 10 hours, second shooter film,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
literally
The whole deal.
gold plated, whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, I respect the craft
Sure.
so much,
Yeah.
but I'm just curious how we got there.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
I had seen maybe like 6 months ago a TikTok or a video that was going around, and it was a planner who compared like the exact same wedding that she planned in 2019 versus 2023, and I think like everything was triple the cost.
Yes.
And I was telling him, like, I brought this up in conversation. I was like, there's no way that like we would have been able to afford the wedding that we had in 2019.
we would have
versus-
refunded the venue.
100%.
There's
Yeah.
no shot we were going to be able to
100%.
pay
But
that.
I also understand, like, there were so many, even like when I saw from your perspective, like we just talked about, so many postponements from 2020. So there's like this like bubble of like weddings and not enough dates to have vendors or like get flowers and all these kinds of things. So I understand like
The
obviously
demand.
supply and demand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
hearing a quote like that is insane to me.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also is like, this is definitely outside of the wedding industry as well, but you know, unfortunately, some people are losing their jobs right
Sure.
now, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that have a really high skill set that are not getting hired for those higher
Yeah.
jobs, and they're having to take jobs that are like below what they were at before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way I see that relating to the wedding industry is having to go through a pandemic as a business owner and, you know, being in the events industry was pretty jarring.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of people got so burnt out, and it had a pretty significant impact on your just overall life experience
Yeah.
because it was insanity. And you have gained this experience that so many people don't have because,
Right.
you know, the only people that were in the industry at that time with established businesses went through that. So I think that's also why prices are higher. Is vendors
Yeah.
are like, do you know what I've been through?
Yeah.
Do you know what I can handle?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
Like uncharted
it's not what we're
territory.
handling anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? So
right.
it's
It's a different game.
It's
yeah.
a totally different game.
That's interesting. Yeah. I it's so hard because you want people to make money,
Of course.
but then it's also like a reality conversation of like, hey man, how much value
right.
are you actually providing? Because
Right.
that's, again, I can say as when I used to be a videographer, I was scared to increase my prices like $300 to $500.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
You're
And
like,
then I heard other guys increasing theirs $3,000 to $5,000, and I was like, can I do that? Like, is that allowed? Is that in the rule book?
totally.
You know? So, but obviously we haven't been wedding planning since 2019, and prices are a little bit different than they were in 2019.
Different
But
space. For
that was
sure.
also pre-COVID. So,
Yeah. Lots of
cool.
factors.
Okay, so we had some hot takes, not really hot takes, and some questions from Instagram, from some people, all planner oriented.
So fun.
So the first two, and I just want to get your thoughts on, are if these people could have redone their wedding. One said their biggest regret was not having a videographer.
Yeah.
So we can start there. And the second one was they wish they would have had a way smaller bridal party, which I thought was an interesting one.
Yeah.
So I'm curious your thoughts on those.
Okay, 100% videographer.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the same sentiment as After the Tone. Is you get your images back and it totally tells the story of your day. But you're never going to capture that like laugh, you're never going to capture that hug. Like so many of us have these mannerisms that we don't realize, or our grandma does, or our mom does, or whatever, that you would never realize, and you can't see it in a picture, but you can see it in a video. Same thing with After the Tone. Like you catch somebody's voice or a phrase that they say or something like that. And so I understand why it's one of the first things to go when people don't have the budget for it, because you can live without it. But 100% always recommend it, because like when we got engaged, somebody took a video for us and I didn't even know that was happening. And I have watched that more times than I looked at our pictures, because it captures it completely differently.
Right.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
definitely.
Whole different perspective.
And the bridal party thing, I feel like half the reason why people have large bridal parties is because they're afraid of hurting people's feelings.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have to get over that.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of girls to deal with. You know, like guys I know is different, but
Yeah.
like, no.
I think from like the person who's being asked perspective sometimes too, like they would almost, I know this is like a really hot take and it really depends on the person and like the relationship that you have with someone, but they would almost be like cool with like
Of course.
not being in
Not getting a bridesmaid's dress.
the bridal party.
Going to the bachelor.
Yeah, just happy to like
for
celebrate and
flags.
be present with you
Yeah.
in that day. But I think it really depends. Yeah. Yeah.
It was so expensive. I was just like thinking through what I want to ask my bridesmaids with.
Yeah.
And I was telling Michael what I wanted to do. And I was like, it's kind of expensive. And
Yeah.
he was like,
Yeah.
yeah, but how much money are they going to spend on you?
Yeah.
And I was like, touche.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so, and like, honestly, if somebody said no, I would never
No
be
hard
offended
feelings.
because it is so expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. I
Do you-
feel like the later on in life you get married, the smaller your wedding party is. Not because you lose friends, maybe, but I think you just remove yourself from that era of your life where
Yeah.
you're like
Life changes.
100%.
Maybe you're not, like spending as much time with somebody that you maybe had if you're like getting married like earlier
Right.
in your 20s and all those things. I totally
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a bridal party target in mind, or how many girls you'd want?
Putting
up
her
there?
on the spot right now.
I think it's going to be 7.
Okay. I always
like
like
that
the
number.
5 to 8.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, most of my bridal party I've known for like 15 years.
Cool.
So that was kind of my threshold.
Yeah.
There's definitely some exceptions in there, and like there are people that Michael and I have become friends with, you know, the
Sure.
people that you are like,
Yes.
oh, you know us as us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that matters so much to me. So I think 7, but this is totally an aside, but the thing that I like cannot decide on, which I don't have to decide for a while, is the whole bachelorette party situation, because everybody's going across the country these days.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that seems wild.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty
Going all
sure
out.
I'm just going to give like a free pass. Like, you don't have to come.
Yeah.
Unless I do it in Palm Springs and like you can totally make it. But if I do it anywhere other than Southern California, you do not have to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you have
At all.
to buy
Or-
a flight.
Expensive.
Are most of them here, SoCal? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of them.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Super nice.
It's always brutal when you got to fly, $400 flight
Yeah.
to the bachelor party and you're there for 2 days and you
I
fly
haven't
back.
done a bachelor party like having to travel yet.
Yeah.
Mostly like San Diego, Palm Springs, Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
But it's nice when you can drive.
Totally.
Driving is ideal, obviously.
Yeah.
But okay, cool.
Yeah. I think my final comment on this is the same way that weddings are getting crazier and crazier. I think bachelorette and bachelor parties are getting crazy and crazier because the standard that you see on Instagram is insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we just all need to turn off our phones when it comes to making those decisions.
Right.
Yep.
Comparing yourself.
Yeah,
and
it's
did I have a fun
so
one?
Toxic.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's like everybody has their own unique budget,
Mm-hmm.
like their choice on like what they want to, spend their money on.
Right.
Bridal proposal boxes with like Gucci in it, like amazing. And what a fantastic, thoughtful friend. But probably out of budget.
It's
for
not
Yeah.
going to be me.
Yeah.
So
Cool. All right, we just got a couple questions from people.
Yeah.
A couple planner tips, and then we got a fun segment at the end.
Cool.
And we'll wrap up. First question: 2 tips for somebody planning a destination wedding where they have no idea where to start.
okay, number 1, and you could just stop here, is to hire a local planner. I
In
think
wherever
you
you're
need
getting
to
married.
hire a planner. Yeah, wherever you're getting married. There are obviously exceptions to this where it's like you are getting married in a very obscure place or they're just not the caliber of vendors that you want. But if you're getting married at a place like Acre down in
Yeah.
Cabo
We had a
Cabo?
best friend
Cabo,
who
yeah.
did a wedding there. Yeah.
that place pumps out weddings.
Yes.
Their planners
So-
are great.
Right.
Yeah.
Work with a planner from
Phenomenal.
there. Or work with the destination planner. I just think number 1, weddings are less expensive down there.
Yeah.
So your money just goes a lot farther. So I would invest in a planner because you can't physically be there. But I would say remove that, assuming a planner's not on the cards. You need to definitely find a solid venue. Like when you are local or near where your wedding is happening, you can kind of err on the side of like, even if they suck, I could probably figure it out. Like if my venue sucks, I could probably figure it out or my whatever. When you are not in the local area, you can't rely on that as much. And so you need to start with some really solid vendors to ensure that it goes smoothly. So that would be a planner or a really good venue.
Gotcha.
Love that.
So
Yeah, I like that. Okay, the next one. For someone who's trying to get a wedding planner, that they don't know how to approach one, how do they approach you? What info should they bring? What questions should they ask? How does one start that conversation?
Are we assuming that this is like they're starting from square one? They've
Yeah.
never, okay.
They got engaged. They have no idea what wedding planning really is or what a wedding planner.
They're not on wedding TikTok.
Yeah,
How
they're
do
not.
they find somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do they bring? What
Yeah.
questions do they ask?
What should they look for? Yeah.
So I always recommend using Instagram as a search engine because a lot of vendors have their vendor role as their name. So it'd be like wedding vendor or wedding videographer or wedding whatever. That helps a lot. Secondarily, I would start talking to people who have gotten married around you. My real answer would be to talk to your venue because your venue is going to probably not make commission off of a planner. It's pretty uncommon for like, unless you're talking like luxury wedding,
Referral.
but anything beneath that, there's no advantage to your venue telling you about a planner aside from the fact that it will make your life easier and their life easier. Definitely talk to your friends. And I think when let's say you find a planner that you really like, I think it's really critical that you align personality wise. Like I talk to my couples all the time and you have to be kind of simpatico because otherwise it will not have been worth it to hire a planner.
Yeah.
So I think you need to look at how do you feel about your interaction? Do you feel like you have the same values? Like if you are talking to a planner and you feel like maybe they just want another wedding in the books, or maybe they're looking to like build a portfolio. If you're looking to have a really extravagant like Instagram wow wedding, that could be a really good fit for you. But if you're looking just to have support from a wedding planner, maybe look for somebody who feels more aligned.
Yeah.
And then if you're designing your wedding, you certainly should be looking for somebody that like you have seen weddings that you really like that they do, or some designers just do a specific type of wedding, so looking for that. But I do think the most important thing is that you really vibe with them, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's super important.
Yeah. Cool. All right, 2 final fun ones.
Okay.
One, if you had to pick one, I'm sure there's a bunch. What's one big red flag you'd tell people to stay away from when it comes to, when they're planning their wedding that you see?
I think if prior to booking, if a vendor is anything but excellent, do not hire them. And there's a difference between, hey, I'm so sorry, like I've had a crazy week, or whatever, and just like not giving you excellent service.
So you mean on the service side, getting back to you on time, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I've personally not always been perfect at this by any stretch, but I think it just matters a lot.
Yeah.
So that's a red flag. I would also say, like, I've worked with venues primarily where there's like costs that they just will not disclose to you, or where you're like,
where's my money
like,
going?
yeah, like, can I see where this is going? Or like, what can I anticipate for costs as I get closer to the wedding, or whatever the case is. If there's any sort of like gray area prior to signing, you're likely going to be subject to paying whatever that is. And so you want as much clarity up front without being like micromanagey about it. You want clarity as to like what you're getting yourself into. So like, do I have to pay for valet? Do I have to pay for shuttles? Do I have to pay for, like, all those things add up so quickly to these like really high numbers. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that. When we got married, on our wedding day, I was writing out my vows into our vow book, and our planner came up to us and said that the dumpster that we had rented, which I was told was the correct size, was not the correct size all of a sudden. And she was asking me like, hey, we need to get the new dumpster. Is that okay?
Thinking about writing your vows.
And I was writing my vows, and I said, well, yes, of course, charge the credit card. I don't know what you want me to say. And it was an extra, $300
But
or
I think
whatever.
that's also on like something to think about when you're getting a venue that's like fully like blank slate. Like bring your own everything down to like extension cords. So.
Yeah. And that's no shade to our venue.
No,
we loved our venue.
absolutely
But it's just
not,
one of those
but-
things where you're told one thing and then you get charged
Think
something
about-
else.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you
Think
know,
about all
money's
the-
money. And
all
you
the
know.
possibilities.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Last question. Kind of a cliche question, but what's one of the craziest things you ever seen at a wedding, or like a wedding story? And I got one too. So you're not alone.
Okay, so I was actually thinking I think about this wedding actually all the time,
Really?
because it was the first wedding I ever cried at.
Oh,
And sorry, I did not mean to bring the mood down, but it's not funny in retrospect, but
Memorable.
I was coordinating a wedding for another wedding planner, and she is like this incredible wedding planner, like top wedding planner. And she's a friend of mine, and she was like, would you mind coordinating my wedding? And I was like, oh my gosh, of course I'll coordinate your wedding. Like, I'll pay you to let me coordinate your wedding. And we get there, this stunning venue, and the venue itself had so many particularities. And I'd never at that point dealt with such a difficult venue. But what really made me cry was it was hurricane level winds, and we had only outdoor space.
oh boy.
My gosh.
And like I was driving up with my good friend Abby, who is also a wedding planner and like worked with me for a long time. And I told her, I was like, I know everything's planned, but I'm pretty sure this wedding is gonna be more work than we know.
Yeah.
Like I just had this intuition of like something. I don't know what it is, but something. And lo and behold, we get there, we set up everything. I mean, like everything is set, and these winds start. And we had these ceramic plates on the tables fully set, flying off the tables. Everything Everything is off the tables. The flowers, everything. And every vendor was freaking out in their own right.
Yeah.
Every vendor had an issue. The florist had to like remove everything and put it on the side of the house and was
Right.
like, I need you to put this up when it's time because we have to go. And I was like,
Oh,
right? Like, can you stay? And we had a catering tent completely collapsed.
Oh, boy.
It was like a fire hazard. So they had to
Oh.
come inside. And I think what like made, aside from the obvious, like there were just so many complications on that day. I felt so bad because this wedding planner had planned hundreds of perfect weddings. And
Yeah.
despite the fact that all of these things were out of my control, it was devastating to have to be like, I had to go to her and be like,
This.
I'm so sorry, but we have to explore plan B. This is what plan B is.
yeah.
Like I had presented it to her and I was like, you don't have to think about it. But
Yeah.
it was like nothing I have ever experienced before in my life. There was sand around us and somebody asked me if I like had been smoking because my eyes were so bloodshot from the
gosh.
sand.
Oh, whoa.
It was like, it's
That's
I
brutal.
can't.
bad.
I like can't even imagine because there's like, I always say this, like I have conversations with people about this, but like there's something about like a certain level of wind that like changes like my mood
right.
entirely. So I can't even imagine when it's just like like a little bit above a regular windy day and then it's like hurricane level winds
Yeah.
and trying to plan like or like produce a beautiful wedding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It
Wow.
ended up, they ended up having a wonderful day.
Good.
good. I'm so
And
glad.
So did you do plan B, whatever that was?
No.
Ooh. Okay.
Because the short of it is that the wind typically dies down when the sun goes down.
Right.
So we were optimistic that that would be the
Good.
case, and it was the case.
Good.
Nice.
So
You made it through
yes,
to tell the story.
and I'm sure the bride felt it 10 times more than what I felt,
Yeah.
but it was.
Jeez.
I felt so bad.
Yeah,
That's why I
yeah.
think about it often.
Yeah.
And that's
But-
like weather, like sometimes you cannot control that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you definitely can't. But
No,
Yeah. Weather's always the worst.
it's
Like when it's people, that's like its own thing. But that's what my story is.
yeah. I need to hear it.
I think I've told Bailey this one, but I was a videographer for a wedding in an indoor venue down here in, I'm not going to say where. And by the end of the night, the police, paramedics, and firefighters were all at the wedding. So there was this couple, obviously they're getting married. They had the bridal party. In the bridal party was the brother who had a drinking thing. And it was one of these situations where the brother was a groomsman because he was the brother, but the friends didn't like the brother because the brother liked to like ruin the day kind of situation or whatever. And so that was like apparent from jump. When I walked in the groomsman suite, like in the morning, it was like a separation thing, whatever. So me and the photographer doing our job, just kind of keeping everybody kumbaya. Let's keep the day, moving.
Yeah.
And then obviously people start drinking, and it was at an indoor venue with concrete floors. And the DJ starts playing the song, and it was like a fun, upbeat song to where the brother was sitting at a table kind of away from the dance floor, hears it, gets excited, stands up, starts running towards the dance floor. And he kind of like grabs this girl that's with him to like, come on, like, let's go dance. But he kind of like lunges towards the dance floor. He ends up wrapping her under him. He falls, and then she gets like smashed into the ground under him.
Oh, no.
And that was the only wedding I've been at where a fall like that, it was like a record scratch. DJ stopped the music. Like he stopped the music, all the lights went on, and then like the groomsmen attacked the guy. And then obviously we started trying to like get medical attention to the girl because she like got smashed on concrete in between this guy, So anyway, so the paramedics came for her. She like had to go out on a stretcher. She was okay. Like, she just got got her bell rang. But so then it was like the worst part was I was contracted to midnight, and this was at 8 p.m.
No.
And we were supposed to have a grand exit.
No.
And it was kind of like, okay, so they kicked the brother out. So, but then he tried to get back in. That's where the cops came. So the firefighters and the paramedics came for the girl. The cops came from him, kicked him out. But then it was like 8:45, and I remember walking up to the planner. I mean, 90% of the guests left.
Yeah.
And I literally like kind of pulled the planner aside. I'm like, hey, I'm contracted at midnight. I will stay here. But like,
You have
is there a grand exit? Because that was the only reason I was staying. I already got the
Right.
dancing footage, you know what I mean? Like it was one of those situations where I was already contracted. But so I was like, hey, what's your take on
Yeah.
are we still doing this or whatever? But we did the midnight grand exit, and we did our best to like shove the remaining people with the sparklers to make it, you know,
Of course.
as thick as it was. And I felt really bad for the couple. They were sweethearts. But anyways,
Oh,
it's,
man.
you know, the stuff you see sometimes. So
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
see
But-
a lot.
anyways, okay. That's it. We have a fun little segment where we end all our episodes on.
Okay.
I'm going to surprise this,
Okay.
jump this on you. It's nothing crazy. So obviously our podcast is called On Speed Dial.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're a company after the tone's built
Yeah.
on connection and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So we have this bit that we ask our guests if, 2 questions. 1, if you have anyone on the favorites or on your speed dial. And 2, if you'll call them on speakerphone right now.
Yeah, of course.
I love it.
Putting her on the spot right now.
Okay. So the people I have on speed dial, the funniest thing, I'll show this to you. It's
love
Michael 2 times
I love
and my
that.
mom. I didn't even know. Oh, it's messages and phone. What do you
love
want me to
that.
say to him?
Well, we have a tagline. This is your reminder to call someone you love.
Okay.
So just a little call, say you love them, say
Okay.
what's
Or
up.
whatever you want to say.
Or whatever. There's no prompt. Yeah, don't tell them.
She can do whatever she wants.
We'll cut it if it's
First-
bad. We'll cut it if it's bad, I promise.
Your call has been forwarded
To voicemail.
He's having a busy day.
Uh-oh.
Don't worry.
Should I call my mom?
Let's do it.
You can if you want to.
She's also working. She'll probably answer the phone though.
She's like, what's going on? The dial tone.
Mm-hmm.
You can leave a voicemail.
Oh, that actually is probably really smart. You guys, I swear these people love me.
They do.
There's my mom.
No way. Okay.
I'll just tell her that I love her.
Mm-hmm.
phone number, and I'll call you back just as soon as I can. Thank you. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hi, Mom. It's me. I just wanted to tell you that I love you, and I hope you're having a good day. Goodbye.
So cute. I love it.
Michael, normally he would answer.
It's
but-
okay. I called my sister and she sent me straight to voicemail, but she's
Yeah.
in class.
Yeah, I
She's
called
a
the best
college
man at my
gal.
wedding. He denied
It's
me
a
too.
Of course,
weekday.
nobody answers the phone,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think Michael's having a busy day.
Yeah.
Next time I'll just bring him with me.
Yeah.
And he can tell you, I can tell him that I love him here.
Perfect. We'll
Awesome.
invite you.
Well, thank you so much, Claire, for hopping on.
Yeah.
We're really stoked to have had you as a guest. This has been awesome. Yeah, that's it. And
Thanks
we'll
so
see you guys
much.
next week.
See ya.
Peace.